to be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs, and we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
Welcome back to Legendary Foods, Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today is Thursday, October 27th, 2022. And let's find out what's going on in the world of bodybuilding and fitness. Sports is like anything else in life, in the sense that everything has a beginning and an end. And right now, it looks like we've seen the end of an era in the Chris Bumstead and Iain coaching-client relationship. At different points last week, Chris and Iain both went into detail on separate posts and videos about the reason for the split. But they both essentially said the same thing, which was that it was a lot from Iain to balance meeting all of Chris's needs as an athlete while also trying to find time in order to keep his own affairs in order on the day of the show. To their credit, they were both pretty adamant about the professional split having nothing to do with their personal relationship, which they say is still on great terms. How this impacts Chris's prep from here on out is something that we'll have to take a wait and see approach, because there are a lot of variables to account for with this. But making a change means that a defending 3-time champion can get more attention or more attention to detail. Then it will probably end up being a win-win in the end. With IRONMAG at his side, I can't see it going wrong. At this point, with the Olympia being a little less than 7 weeks away now, usually we start to see one of two things happening. Either we see some athletes go all in with the updates so we can see the storm coming from a mile away, or we see them go 0 dark 30, completely drop off the radar, and then we don't see or hear from them until the day of the show. And luckily for us, Samson Dauda falls into the "here I am and I don't give a damn who sees me coming" category, as he continues to push full speed ahead towards stepping on stage for the biggest show of his career. We've already heard the big Rammies of the world say that they see Samson as someone who could do some serious damage this year at the Olympia. And every time he releases one of these new updates, you can see why there's so much cause for concern. Because he's made as much in-season progress as anyone on the roster. And if his conditioning is where it needs to be, there may be a world where we see him find a way to crack the top 6 this year, which would definitely make for one hell of an Olympia debut. One of the things that we saw with the Major League Baseball playoffs last week was peaking at the right time means a lot more than racking up a bunch of meaningless wins during the regular season. Because once you get to the home stretch, no one really cares what your record was. And in that sense, baseball and bodybuilding have that in common, which is a really good thing for a guy like Vlad Suhoruchko, because it means that putting together a few good weeks is all it takes to completely upset a heavy favorite. For all intents and purposes, the expectations from Vlad heading into his first Olympia are tempered compared to Samson Dowda's and Andrew Jack's, which might actually work to his advantage in the long run, because he isn't under as much external pressure. All he has to do is focus on the process and do his best to peak at the right time, because if he can do these two things, everything else will find a way of falling into place. Even though the hype train behind Andrew Jack has slowed down a little bit over the last month or so, he's someone who probably also falls into the same category as Samson, in the sense that he's heading towards his Olympia debut with a lot of momentum behind him. And maybe even more pressure when you think about the expectations that were heaped on him after he won his debut at the IFBB Texas Pro. Now, granted, he probably didn't do himself any favors when he said that he was only at 80% of his best in Texas, because it set the bar so high heading into the Arnold's UK that it was almost impossible for him to ever live up to those expectations, despite the fact that he did still end up snagging the win there. But at the end of the day, there was a reason why people were so high on him after what we saw earlier in the year, because he does have an incredibly high ceiling that could also land him in a top 6 range if he's at his absolute best. He checks enough boxes and has enough tools that a finish like this isn't totally out of the question, which means that his best moments of 2022 might still be ahead of him. And that does it for yet another edition of Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, reminding you to always be true to your passions, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.